This interpretive film and performance project has been produced by New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park. The program was funded by the National Park Service's Lower Mississippi Delta Initiative, an organization that strives to highlight culture and heritage in the Lower Mississippi Delta. Join us as we take a road trip to national parks in the Lower Mississippi Delta. Oh yeah.
How many like that drummer boy who prayed before he died? How many like that drummer boy who prayed before he died?
Shiloh National Military Park is our country's second national military park, created in 1894 to preserve the site of the two-day battle, April 6th and 7th of 1862, which was the first large battle of the American Civil War. By the end of the second day, April 7th, 110,000 men will have been fighting on these 6,000 acres. 4,200 of which we preserve today in the National Park Service on the battlefield. Prior to the Battle of Shiloh, the casualty rate in the earlier battles was 6 to 9%. Here it's 25%. When the word of the casualties get back home to the newspapers and the people back home, it does send shockwaves through the public and politicians, both in Richmond and in Washington, D.C., and they realize this is going to be a lot tougher, bloodier road than anybody ever thought or imagined the war could be. Well, this is the second of a series of disasters befalling the Confederate Army that spring of 1862. With the fall of Fort Donelson and Fort Henry up near the Tennessee-Kentucky border, that would be the first major victory for the Union military. That leads directly to the Union military establishing a camp here at what we know now the battlefield of Shiloh, and what they were referring to as Pittsburgh Landing at the time. Over the field where April rain solaced the parched one stretched in pain. Through the pause of night that followed the Sunday fight around the church of Shiloh.
Well, the major lesson is kind of connected more to the amount of casualties that were here. 23,000 plus. On that note, that's 23,000 people that either did not go home or went home wounded or were missing, captured, things like that. So this was a great wake-up call to both sides. Not that, oh, we're going to lose a lot of people, but we're going to lose lots of people, not just small amounts or people here, people there. And these guys were losing limbs. These guys were losing their lives. These guys were losing their brothers, their fathers. Women back home were losing those. So we have to remember that this battle was great on a horrible type scale. And all the wars, from the Revolution all the way up to the Civil War, you add the casualties all together, and they still do not amount to the casualties that were faced here at the Battle of Shiloh.
Johnny Clem apparently was this soldier who was a 10-year-old drummer who fought at the Battle of Shiloh and was nicknamed Johnny Shiloh, and they even wrote a song called The Drummer Boy of Shiloh about little Johnny Clem.
On Shiloh's dark and bloody ground, the dead and wounded lay. Among them was a drummer boy who beat the drums that day.
Unfortunately, that's not true. It is legend, it's myth. We don't have any evidence at all of Johnny Clem ever stepping foot on the battlefield during the fight or even later in life.
His drum was by his side
you listen to the lyrics, there's no name in the song of any drummer boy. In fact, the drummer boy in the song doesn't survive the Battle of Shiloh. He gets killed. But Harper's Weekly did a story about the drummer boy of Shiloh and the song. They really wanted to put a name with the song. So what Harper's Weekly did is took the name of Johnny Clem out of the story of Chickamauga and put it into the story about the drummer boy of Shiloh.
He clasped his hands, then raised his eyes and prayed before he died.
Ever since then, there's this great myth that grew up about the Battle of Shiloh and Johnny Clem actually being Johnny Shiloh.
They listened to the drummer boy who prayed before he died.
And of course, Johnny Shiloh will stay in the Army his whole life. He will be the very last Civil War veteran to retire from the U.S. Army, and that'll be 1915 when he retires as a Major General. And he never really said anything different about the legend. I guess having free drinks and free dinners is nice when you got that kind of fame. So little Johnny Clem grew up to be Major General John Clem and never really squashed the idea of him being the actual drummer boy of Shiloh.
It's a wake-up call to everyone that this is not just some simple war.
What we're going to start out with today is, since we're at Shiloh, let's start with something that has to do with Shiloh. This is a poem, and Matt has written some very wonderful music to go along with this poem. It's called Shiloh, a Requiem, originally written right during the war by a little-known author by the name of Herman Melville. Actually, I'm just kidding. But his big work was in 1851. Of course, that was Moby Dick. By the 1860s, he needed some money, and he went on a lecture tour for about 3 years, trying to make some money, and that is in 1860, 61, 62. And in 1863, he decided to write a book of war poems. Nobody bought it. He didn't make a dime off it, and only recently, as his career stalled out by the war and really never recovered, it's only recently that a lot of these poems and a lot of the books that he had written after the Civil War became appreciated. He actually died pretty much penniless up in New York and sort of a forgotten writer. So the first song we'll do here, or poem and music, again, is Shiloh, a Requiem. Skimming lightly, wheeling still, the swallows fly low. Over the field in clouded days, the forest field of Shiloh. Over the field where April rain solaced the parched one stretched in pain. Through the pause of night that followed the Sunday fight around the church of Shiloh. The church so lone, the log-built one, that echoed to many a parting groan and natural prayer. Of dying foemen mingled there, foemen at morn, but friends at eve. Fame our country least their care. What like a bullet can undeceive? But now they lie low, while over them the swallows skim. And all is hushed at Shiloh.